Hey everyone, I'm Pastor David.
And I'm Taylor. And if you've never been with us before, welcome to your first Kids Box. And if you have been with us before, welcome back.
Just because we're in a time of quarantine doesn't mean that we can't be together and keep community. So we hope that this is a way that you guys just are blessed through this, and we hope you enjoy the lesson. Hey guys, it's Pastor David again, and I'm excited to talk to you guys today about an interesting topic, which is gossip. So today's sermon title is going to be, Did You Hear About? Now, whether you know it or not, almost everybody I can think of has participated or witnessed in the telling of gossip. Gossip is something that can be really dangerous and toxic. We've already kind of learned earlier how powerful the tongue can be, right? When we talked about like basically good and bad words, right? But gossip is a totally different thing. It still involves obviously the tongue and your words and it being toxic, but it's really not good. Now, obviously, if I were to ask you, is gossip good or bad, you'd immediately say it's bad. We kind of all know that gossip's not okay. But why is it that it's so tempting and it's such a problem and it happens a lot? That's kind of what I want to talk about. And then what does God think about gossip? See, the trap of talking about gossip or telling gossip, creating gossip, there's the word, the trap of it lies in how tempting and easy it is to think that it's not going to hurt anybody and it's actually not going to spread. Because when you're first spreading gossip or talking about it, you're really just telling like one or two people, and it doesn't seem like it's going to go anywhere, right? And that's what Satan and the enemy, that's what Satan wants you to think. I want you guys to think of it this way. Think of all the different, I don't know if you guys are too young for this or not, but Smokey the Bear, he used to have these advertisements and commercials on TV about how you shouldn't start forest fires, basically. Now, nobody thinks that it's okay to just purposefully go start a forest fire, but the purpose of those advertisements and those warnings were to be careful with things like matches, or a lot of times people would smoke cigarettes in these parks, or just anything that was flammable, because a very small spark can cause a great fire, right? And so I want you guys to be thinking about what other small, tiny things like that can immediately spread and cause chaos. That's basically what gossip can do. See, some of the effects of gossip is, your friends can get mad at you, but you can actually lose friendships completely from it. But more importantly, what I want us to talk about is the negative effect of gossip is the more and more it gets spread and talked about, well, people will start to believe those things about themselves. They'll start to believe that they're ugly because that's what everybody's saying, or they'll start to believe that they lie all the time because that's the gossip getting spread around, right? Or they're not trustworthy. And when people start to believe those negative things about themselves, they start to not believe the things that God says about them. So they start to close off the voice of God because they don't believe it, and they're feeding into these negative thoughts that are getting spread. Well, if everybody's saying this, it must be true, and what God's saying, I don't hear anybody talking about that, so that can't be true. And so they start to close off their ears to hearing God, and that's pretty much the worst thing that can happen. There's something in us that wants to hear that good, exclusive, juicy piece of information, ooh, there's gossip spreading, I need to know what it is, right? It's tempting, it's human nature to want to spread that and know what it is. But you and I are Christians, and we're called not to be like the rest of the world. We are called to call out God-given identities that are in people, right? We are born again. We're supposed to be kind of these aliens that are different from the rest of the people in the world, really, right? Us as Christians, anybody that believes in Jesus Christ, we're called to live differently. God actually categorizes gossip as unrighteous. Take a look at this. This is in Romans 1, starting at verses 29. Now, this is Paul talking, but he's talking about God, talking about the unrighteousness of man or people, right? Starting at verse 29, it says, They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice, and they are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness, and they are gossips. Now that is a lot of information to cover in one video, so we're not going into it. But notice how crazy bad all of those different things are, and he includes gossips in there. Like, murderers are in there. He's including gossip as almost just as bad. Like, that's kind of weird to think about, right? But that's how dangerous gossip can really be if it spreads enough. You guys have all heard the stories about cyberbullying or maybe even bullying in real life and gossip getting spread about somebody, and they get picked on so much that they fall into this depressed state, and sometimes they take their own life. That's really sad. That's why it can be as dangerous as murder. It's not a good thing to partake in. So that's why we're going to be people that will combat against it. You guys have 2 sheets with you, and we could not get them to print correctly. So that's why they look all weird and there's a lot of black ink on the paper. But really just take them as this exercise, flip it over if you need to. But on one of them, you'll notice it has a match and then a great fire in a forest. What I want you to do in the remaining blocks of that worksheet is draw other examples of like really small things that can lead to something even bigger. And that's the only example I can really give you, is that match starting a great flame into a forest. Draw what you think could be like one small example and then what it could turn into, okay? That's just to help us illustrate a little bit more about what gossip can do. The other sheet is to help us reflect on what gossip actually is. Because we can all agree, yeah, gossip's bad, I won't join into gossip, right? We can all agree on that, but sometimes we partake in gossip without even realizing it. So on that worksheet, I want you to go through and honestly answer if you think all of those different situations are gossip or not. Lastly, the things that are in your box are also to reflect both what gossip can do and what gossip is like, and then how we combat against it. If you guys have any questions, you can obviously reach out to us. But you have a little bit of glow-in-the-dark silly putty, and you have a little canister of glitter. What I want you to do is just take that silly putty out. You can play with it, whatever, but then take a pinch of glitter and drop it in the silly putty. After you're done with that, I want you to try to remove every piece of glitter from the silly putty. Now, like, sprinkle it in there and kind of like mush it up and everything, and then try to remove every little piece. I bet you can't do it. I bet there's always going to be at least one little sparkle somewhere. That's to illustrate what gossip is like. It's like, it's just a little bit of gossip, right? And then it kind of spreads and molds and gets into everything. And before you know it, like, you cannot take it back. Once gossip gets out, it's out there. You can apologize, obviously, if it gets really bad, but once it's spread, it's spread. And so that's to illustrate how bad gossip can be. The other thing you have in your box is you have a little flower pot, you have some soil or some dirt, and you have some flower seeds. Now you guys can take that pot outside. It's actually biodegradable, so you can start the pot inside and then take it out into the grass or wherever. I mean, ask your parents where you are gonna bury it, but then put it into the ground and it will actually degrade into the ground. It's like okay for it to happen. It's not littering, it's biodegradable, okay? But anyway, you guys are going to grow a flower, basically. And what I want you to think about is how you can combat gossip. See, if we plant seeds of compliments or truth and the things that God says about people, if we say those things behind each other's backs, like, oh, you know, I don't know, Bob is such a good guy. He always tells the truth. He's such a trustworthy guy. If Bob's not around and you're saying that about him, all of a sudden you're spreading positive, true things about him. And those seeds can begin to grow and positivity is spread, and the God-given identity that we have, all of a sudden people will start to believe that to be true, and they'll hear the voice of God more clearly because they're used to hearing it from everybody else. Does that make sense? So take your flower pot, take your soil, take your seeds, water them, give them sunlight, ask your parents for help if you need, but that's to illustrate how planting seeds like that and speaking positive things can grow into life instead of the glitter getting stuck in the putty and then never being able to get out and just creating a mess. So the next time you hear like a piece of gossip or something like that, feel free to shut it down. Just step up and be like, is that really true? And even if it is, I don't think we should be saying that about them. And did you guys know? And then you guys can tell them something positive about that person. And that's how we combat against gossip. Thanks guys for listening, and then I will speak to you next week.